when solving absolute value equations, the absolute value itself, those bars, that expression inside there represents the distance a number is from 0 on the number line. That's what absolute value is, distance. So since absolute value is a distance, the result of finding the absolute value is either going to be 0 or a positive number. If you're -3 spaces to the left of 0 or +3 spaces to the right of 0, you're still going to have to take 3 steps to get back to 0. Distance can't be negative. So that's why absolute value, that value inside there always has to be positive. So because the number inside there could be positive or negative, but it always equals a positive, you're always going to have 2 solutions unless it equals 0. So when we're solving these, so for your first example, 2x plus 3, absolute value of 2x plus 3 equals 7, that expression 2x plus 3 could be positive 7 or negative 7 for when you pull it out of there for it to be positive. So that's always going to be the first step, creating 2 equations. 2x plus 3 could be 7, or 2x plus 3 could equal -7. Whether it's positive or negative, when you pull it out, because it's absolute value, that's why it's going to be positive. But we have to solve for both instances. So then just solve both equations. So when you guys do this, it's not a matter of you solving one equation, getting an answer, and then just say you get 5, and then the second answer is going to be -5. It doesn't work that way. It's going to be the same steps. You're still going to subtract 3 from both equations. So these steps are going to be the same, but as you see, and then we'll divide by 2. I'm just doing them both at once just to show you guys. You don't end up with the same answer. It's not one is positive and one is negative. You're solving for one being positive and one being negative using the same steps, but you're not always just going to get the same answer, one positive, one negative. It doesn't work that way. So in this case, x could be positive 2 or -5. So for absolute value, you guys are always solving for 2 equations. So in your second example, 2 times the absolute value of 2x plus 13 equals 10. If the absolute value is not the only thing on the left-hand side of your equation, you have to get it by itself first. So this right here is the absolute value. So 2x plus 13 is what we want by itself. So since it's not yet, it's 2 times 2x plus 13. I know your mind is probably telling you to distribute that 2 in there, but we leave the absolute value alone. We don't want to put anything inside there with it. So since it's 2 times, we're going to do the opposite and divide both sides by 2. And we end up with 2x plus 13 equals 5. So that will be our first equation. And then our second equation will be 2x plus 13 equals -5. And then we just solve them both. So we'll solve the first one. Subtract 13. 2x equals -8 if you divide by 2. X equals -4 for the first one. And then we'll solve the second one. So again, same steps, subtract 13. 2x equals negative 18 divided by 2. And the second equation, x equals negative 9. Same steps, but two different answers. Every once in a while, yes, you will get x equals 3, x equals negative 3, x equals 4, x equals negative 4. But as a rule, it doesn't work that way. Let's also look at example 3 and 4 just for some more practice. So if we look at example 3, again, getting that absolute value by itself. So we're going to subtract that 13 first. Absolute value of 2x minus 3 is going to equal 4. So now that the absolute value is by itself, that is when you split it to say, okay, 2x minus 3 could be 4, or 2x minus 3 could be negative 4, and then solve for both those equations. Again, same steps. Add 3 to both sides. 2x equals 7. Divide by 2. X equals 7 halves. It will be the same steps, but you should not get the same answers. Not all the time. So add 3. 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. So x equals 7 halves and negative 1 half. You can't split that absolute value equation until you've got nothing but absolute value bars on that left-hand side. And then example 4. So again, we've got to get rid of, in this case, the 3 and the negative 5. So subtract that 3 first. Negative 5 times the absolute value of 4x plus 1 equals negative 25. And divide by negative 5. So we get the absolute value of 4x plus 1 equals 5. This number must be positive. If this, say it were 25 divided by negative 5, and we got equal negative 5, nothing inside that absolute value bar is going to equal negative 5. So if you're getting ready to split this equation and that number on the right, what it equals to, is not positive, then it would be no solution. You couldn't physically solve for that equation. So just keep an eye out for that as well. If you end up with it equaling a negative, it would not be possible. So solve for your two individual equations. So subtract the 1. So divide by 4. So x would equal 1. And 6/4 or 3 halves. Get the absolute value by itself, the only thing on the left-hand side, then split. Solve for the positive, solve for the negative. Down below, it just wants us to check. It says, note that while some x values of the solution are negative, the goal is to find values that make the original absolute value statement true. So for x equals negative 5, in example 1 that we did, plug it in. 2 times negative 5 plus 3 equals 7. Simplifies to negative 10 plus 3. Yes, it is negative 7, but the absolute value of negative 7 is 7. So, which is true. So it wants us to verify that the two negative values we got in example 2 make that absolute value equation true. So if you go up to example 2, it was 2 times the absolute value of 2 times x plus 13 equals 10. And we got x to be negative 4 and negative 9. So that's what we want to plug in. So let's check -4 first. And I'm just going to move this over. Does it equal 10? So let's see. 2 times -4 is -8. -8 plus 13 is 5. That would just become regular 5, even though it already is. 2 times 5 is 10. So that one is good. So let's try -9. 2 times -9 plus 13, does it equal 10? So 2 times -9 is -18. -18 plus 13 is -5. That absolute value of -5 is still 5 spaces from 0. It's distance. That's what absolute value is. So 2 times 5 is 10. So they do both work. So it doesn't matter if one of them is positive, one of them is negative. They're both positive, they're both negative. You just can always check that whatever you do get as your solutions, you can plug them back in to see that they are the solution and that they do work.